Yeah, or maybe,
We are not.
maybe just here more.
Because then I'll be in there. Oh, you heard them, that's okay. I do want to tell them, sorry. That's okay.
Forget what I just said.
Okay. Oh, and also, when we were live, when we, 6:30, the time to figure out everyone. And when we go into closed session, we're gonna have to have a little bit of time, so I'm gonna have to change out.
Thanks for the reminder.
I feel like I'm talking to someone on the phone, I can't really, I look on that. I need it. I really, think about it.
I mean, I can give you mine, and I'll just do the clerk.
What's up, Julie?
We got on
I'm
this
sorry.
side. Okay.
Sure.
So you're single puts it to sleep. Huh?
Jerry?
Yeah.
Dude, did you?
Hey, Doc. What's that? It's raining all right.
The DOT concurs. It's okay with the DOT.
Which one? What's wrong with it? Oh, it's not quite in the right place? Oh.
Oh, hey, Gary. We don't have any file number.
Friday night. You coming?
I don't know if I'll make that loud.
They're doing they're doing a ceremony for Clay Hamilton Friday night.
Oh, okay.
Hey, we gotta think about it before.
Yeah.
It's a stage.
It's right in.
The stage we get up there.
They just said,
Hey.
good. Yeah, it's all good. I'm good.
Yeah, it's been moved around over the years, not just us, but the people. And we'd start a lot out, I think we'll be able to provide upcoming music stuff. Concerning housing, especially when you're hurt, because we're decking.
Right.
I guess I would come.
This is not mine.
Yeah. Got to build a big enough stage, I don't know what that costs. Long wise, it'd be crazy right now. And like, certain bands, I don't know this, but like the band, what's the band that come to the park?
Yeah.
They've actually got a spec for the size of the stage.
You think you're gonna like it there?
Yeah, so it's 35 by 14 is the minimum size stage.
Yeah, you're in good shape.
For their equipment there. That was 37 by 14.
Yeah, good. Work for a great company. Work.
Yeah, we, but it makes sense if you get all that equipment there. Plus they will say,
It is 6:30. I call the meeting to order. This is the May 11, 2021 regular meeting of the Fairview Town Council. Councilwoman Kinley will have our invocation.
Could we bow our heads, please? Our kind and gracious and loving Heavenly Father, as we are here tonight in the midst of all the beauty of your creation, we seek your presence with us as we consider items of importance to this town of Fairview in which we live. Please be with us and put your blessings upon us. Please hear our prayers. Amen.
Amen.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have some changes to the agenda. Under item 1, under items of business, we need to put public hearing, to open the public hearing, hear the public comments, and then close the public hearing. On the fire department contract, under number 8, that first sentence should read, all official communications from the department to the town shall come from the chief and/or president of the board of directors. The way that it was worded, I believe, was president of the board of directors. And also, I need to add a presentation. Mr. Bjorn Hansen will have a brief presentation for us. Also add number 3 under items of business, 601, a brief intersection. We need to vote on that. We heard the presentation last week from the consulting engineer. We need to have a council vote on that tonight. And also number 4, Union County Community Development Block Grant. And I'll have some comments to make on that under number 4 under items of business. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Could you repeat, you mentioned number 8. Is that an add, item 8?
It's a change
On the consent agenda.
On the consent.
consent agenda under the fire department contract.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda with the changes.
Second.
All in favor? The motion carries. This time we'll move to, are there any public comments, Teresa? Okay, there are no public comments, so we'll move to presentations. Mr. Gillen Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I have a couple copies of the full slideshow, which is very similar to what you saw last month, as well as informational comparison sheets between the alternatives for the intersection of 601 and Brief. This is a follow-up from the informational presentation you received last month from the consulting team that is assisting Union County. This is for the critical intersection program, which is something we've been doing for the last 5 years to help focus our efforts on grant activities and also to give guidance to the NCDOT when they identify issues at specific intersections. The intersection of 601 and Brief was identified through our 2019 process as one of 15 throughout the county. And we follow up with design grants to come up with alternatives as well as cost estimates to present to the public as well as the decision makers to determine if we're going to do something, what is that something to be done at that location. So we have completed the public comment period, ran March into April, across Union County, we received about 700 comments. The one in Marvin, Bonds Grove Church and Waxhaw Marvin had almost 400 comments. They were very active. Here in Fairview, the mayor and I actually did some innovative outreach attempts. We reached out to the school in the area, got their staff to fill out the survey. We also were in person at the Hot Mess Burger to have people who obviously are going to be impacted by the intersection to fill it out as well, and they did so. So we had 52 comments over the comment period, which is good. And the two alternatives that were being considered is to improve the turn lanes and signage for Brief Road in either direction leading to 601, not to improve 601 itself. That would help with safety somewhat, but not that much. It's approximately $1 million. And I will say that both of the cost estimates that were presented to you previously, they include a lot of contingencies. We are probably, in any of these intersections, we probably get funded through the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization. They get $15 to $20 million a year to distribute to projects like this throughout the 3-county region. And in order to reduce the risk of people coming back and saying, oh, we didn't have enough money in our budget, they have required that we build in significant contingencies in all 3 phases of the process. So if it were built according to the cost, it might only be $600,000, but the full cost that you would submit for funding would be approaching $1 million because it includes a significant amount of contingency funding. So the first one is for turn lane improvements on the side streets and restriping. The second one is for a single lane roundabout. That would be a obvious change to 601 and would impact the intersection from a safety perspective to a much higher degree, as well as helping Brief Road for people who are stopped trying to either cross or turn left. And it would have a significant impact on the crash history in that area. That's a lot more expensive. That's approaching $3 million. And that's in today's dollars. Realistically, if you're to build it and everything goes well, it's more like a $2 million project, but it has $1 million in contingencies built in for unforeseen complications. This was significantly supported by the public to the tune of more than 2-to-1 ratio in support of the roundabout, mainly because of the safety considerations. The comment that was made quite a bit was, well, why not a signal? And the reason why is because the traffic on Brief Road just doesn't support it. There just isn't enough traffic, and DOT does not want to put up signals that just aren't needed, because to take a signal down is a very laborious process, and people play it like, oh, that's my signal, that's how I cross the street. So they only want to put them up when they're truly needed. You might say, well, there's signals on other locations on 601, and we looked into the history of why they were installed. For the most part, it's because they were installed before the roundabouts really became an option. So it's like, well, you have the hammer, everything looks like a nail. They had a crash history record, so everything turns into a signalization project. Nowadays, you might have some of them, if they were being implemented today, it would be a roundabout project. And that's why the roundabout was recommended. It's more of a fire and forget type of project. They don't have to go in and maintain the loops, the utility poles, replacing bulbs, and it's just a lot safer. I mean, you have on 218 where a signalization project is being ripped out and replaced with a roundabout because of 2 fatalities, even though there was a signal there. They're just significantly safer, and that was the reason why this intersection was selected in the first place. So the recommendation or the request for you tonight is to make a choice, and honestly, you do have 3 choices. You could choose the turn lane improvement project, you could choose the roundabout, or you could say I choose neither. Or you could choose a 4th and say we like either of them. But what this does is it gives the county commission guidance when they receive this. I'm making the same presentation next Monday night for all 5 of the intersections, 4 of which are inside of municipalities, 1 of which is only in unincorporated Union County. For the ones that are inside municipalities, the typical recommendation is to agree with the municipality. For the one that's solely in the county, they're going to have to make the decision. But what this doesn't obligate you to committing funds at this time, only if we were to, in cooperation with the DOT and the county and the municipality, cobble together a project application either through state or CARPO funding solicitations to try and get it funded. That's what this does. It also, if the DOT chooses to go it alone, it gives them a design that they can pull off the shelf that they have confidence that they're not going to get beat up by the public or the local communities to say, where did this design come from? Well, it came from us. So that's how it gives us buy-in and a stake in the transportation planning process. So I think you have this on here twice. The first is for a presentation, the second is for a decision, Mayor. So I'll sit down, but when this comes back up again, it'll be for decision making. But I'm happy to answer questions either now or later.
Okay. You said something about the DOT was going to put rumble strips in as a temporary.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I found that out this morning at a meeting at 11 a.m. that the state periodically funds smaller scale, signage, rumble strip, other low cost projects that they can do relatively quickly. This intersection, 601 and Brief, was just funded for rumble strips on the approach to the intersection, as well as advanced warning signage to let people know there's a intersection coming up. Can't give you a schedule. It's a relatively easy project. Times are weird. Normally it would be, oh yeah, this will be done in 2021. They can't say when it'll be done, but relatively soon.
Okay. Any questions before we go on?
Yes, sir. I got a question. If I understood you correctly, it sounds like to me roundabout versus signal is based upon money and not safety. Is that correct?
Well, the signals work at higher volume roads. Roundabouts are kind of a sweet spot in the middle where you have a fair amount of traffic, especially if it's coming from multiple directions. And then an all-way stop would be for your lowest volume roads.
Because it's hard to understand, because I asked the question last week, and I'm trying to be able to, you enable me to answer the question if it's asked to me. They said that the signal would be about $100,000 as opposed to $3 million.
I don't think the signal would be $100,000.
That's what they said when I asked the lady that made the presentation last week. She said about $100,000. And I guess what concerns me is, and of course I haven't been every roundabout, but roundabout to me makes a lot of sense when the speed limit is 45 or below. When we have 55 mile speed limit, and I was talking to the firemen here today, they said they responded to the roundabout at Mill Grove and 218 because people are blowing through the roundabout. And they're only doing 45, I think, in that area. So it seems to me, and you watch the trucks going up and down 601, they're moving at a pretty good rate of speed. That sounds like to me that could be an issue in itself, is having a roundabout with that amount of speed.
It is absolutely correct. It's a higher speed corridor. The location, the speed is both a caution of, hey, you're going to be slowing down a lot to go through the roundabout, but at the same time, people recognize the speed is an issue and it needs to be slowed down. So it's a signage question. It's going to be, advance notice, rumble strips to let you know that this is coming up to it. But the only reason these are making it as recommendations to you is because they have been vetted by the consultant engineering group that's working with us and the NCDOT. They don't make recommendations for stuff that they don't think is going to work or is going to make the situation worse. So the $100,000 cost for the signal, if they said, yeah, that's in the ballpark, I would just be surprised that that's the
The figures I remember was 670 for the turn lanes, 100,000 for the signal, and 2.4 million for the roundabout. It just seems like to me that just seems, what concerns me is when asked the question is, we can't get the grass mowed in front of our house in 601 because we don't have any money, they don't have money at the DOT to mow the grass. But we're spending $3 extra million only because it makes sense to the engineer, and in a practical standpoint, it seems to me if you've got less traffic coming down Brief Road, it would make it safer for a light than to have a roundabout, because you don't have much traffic to be concerned about. Because I see the trucks running the stoplight down here at Lawyers all the time, and I don't have traffic compared, but I just want to be able to validate somebody asking why they made the decision.
Yeah, Lawyers Road I actually had a resident call me this morning. We looked at the Lawyers Road corridor coming out from Mecklenburg County. There are 5 funded intersection projects on Lawyers Road before you hit 601, 4 of which are roundabouts. And the roundabouts, I mean, we get the crash records before and after an intersection's been improved, which is quite often a roundabout project. And every once in a while, you'll get someone doing a Dukes of Hazzard, going right through it and launching themselves, but they typically only do that once.
Well, roundabouts normally in an area of 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, or usually less.
I mean, it's being installed in multiple locations on NC 200, south of Monroe, which is a very high-speed road, 55 miles an hour. It's being installed on NC 75 between Waxhaw, or between Mineral Springs and Monroe, which is a 55-mile-an-hour road, and installed on 218, quite a bit of which shouldn't be 55 miles an hour, but it is. So yes, it is installed on 55-mile-an-hour roads. And I would say also, because of the crash benefits, the DOT, when you look at these recommendations, you're looking at a life cycle. It's the cost to build it, it's the cost to maintain it, and then the value of the congestion and safety benefits that accrue from it. And the safety benefits are so significant because of the roundabout. And one of the things that was brought up about the traffic on Brief Road is that there's development pressure in this area. And eventually, Brief Road is going to get a lot more. And people trying to cross 601 is pretty hairy. And so when we get to that point, frankly, that's the opportunity to kind of say, okay, it's bad enough, we need to do something. What is that something? This is that something. That's really what this is about. Is the traffic that bad on Brief right now? Not really, but the development is marching out this way, and this would be the recommendation when it gets to that point.
Any other questions for Bjorn? Okay, thank you, Bjorn.
Thank
And
you.
we will vote on that in a few minutes when we get to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. We'll make a couple of comments on the consent agenda before we approve it. The Memorial Day proclamation, all of us have probably had friends, relatives who gave their lives in service. I think it's important that the town recognize that, and that we be cognizant of that fact and support Memorial Day and Memorial Day activities. Also, on number K, the resolution opposing the proposed zoning reform, Senate Bill 349, House Bill 401. I have already sent an email to 6 of our senators and representatives. I put copies of their names and addresses and email addresses on the table back there. We're going to send a resolution to them from the town, assuming that we do support that. There's also a suggested letter on our Facebook page and on the town website if you want to use that letter as a guideline. But if these bills were to pass, it would basically destroy zoning for towns and allow in single family zoning duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and townhomes. So we need to make sure that we oppose that and that we get as many people as we can to oppose that as well. Just some editorial comments on the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? And the motion carries. So we'll move to number 4, items of business. Item number 1, discuss approve amendment to Fairview nuisance ordinance, TCN 21-036.
This is an amendment to the ordinance that some residents approached me several months ago with a problem of small motorized vehicles in and between their houses in a subdivision. The gentleman said, you know, we've tried everything we can in some neighborhood, but we don't have any keys to enforce getting people to abide by certain times or certain noises or that type of thing. So I talked to the mayor about it, and the only way that I thought we could do it, if you wanted to, would go ahead and amend the nuisance ordinance a certain way for a subdivision. And the way I have it to change is, as determined by the Fairview Land Use Administrator, or and that should be the sheriff's department that noise from a motorized vehicle, any motorized vehicle, to include mini bikes, four-wheelers, cars, loud mufflers. And this would apply to subdivisions only with lots under 10 acres in size. So we're not saying that we're going to try to regulate a farm out here and have mini bikes on it. You can't do it, but in a subdivision, a little bit different because the houses are a little bit closer together on small lots. Now, there's no, I told the young man there's no guarantee that this would be passed, but I think it's reasonable to think if you live in a subdivision that respect for your neighbor is such that loud mufflers and loud noises all week and all weekend. Now granted, this young couple had some small children, which made it even worse. But I told them I would bring it to you and see what you thought about it. Any change to an ordinance also involves a public hearing. So with that, that's the mayor to open the public hearing.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments? Public comments?
Maybe we get that changed to major subdivisions instead of just subdivisions, because my understanding is subdivision is just any, is there any limits for the number of houses on a subdivision? So if my neighbor decided to subdivide his lot into two, and I was on my lot, then technically I'm within a subdivision, I'm next to a subdivision, right?
Minor
It's under 10 acres in size, yes.
So if my neighbor's got 10 acres, he subdivides into two, I'm on my property, I'm on a mini bike, technically I'm next to the subdivision, correct?
You're next to that, that's correct.
Okay, so if we were to amend that to major subdivisions, that would better encompass the situation what you're talking about. Because a major subdivision is over 7 units.
over 5.
5.
Usually a subdivision of the numbers of houses is usually smaller lots. This particular subdivision has got lots from 2.5 acres to 5 acres. But no larger than that.
The way that I was interpreting this a subdivision, I'm thinking in terms of minor subdivisions being 5 houses, major subdivisions being over 5 houses. It would apply to areas with subdivisions with 5 houses or more than 5 houses. Is that
Well, I
correct?
have got, I wrote it, any subdivision. So he's got a question, is a 2-lot a subdivision? Well, it's where a lot was divided into 2 parts. Well, we've had that conversation. Is it a subdivision of lots? Well, yes, it can be called that, but it's really a division of lots. So it's how you determine a subdivision. If you wanted to say only major subdivisions, then it would be 6 lots or over.
I guess the question would be is when you've got this 5-lot subdivision criteria, but if somebody, and as it happened, if somebody comes in that is only going to do 2 houses, how do you rate them at that point in time? If they're going to build 2 houses and it's less than, is that even called a subdivision?
When a subdivision is conceived,
Right.
you can't re-subdivide a subdivision.
Okay.
So in other words, when it's set as a subdivision, that's the number of lots it is going to be forever.
So by definition, what he's saying, that wouldn't be a subdivision. That would not be a subdivision then, would
It
it?
would be a minor. Any lot any lot divided into two, well, I consider any subdivision of a lot a subdivision. It could be two lots, has to be more than two, it has to be at least two, up to five, that's what I deal with. You deal with 6 and over. It is confusing, especially when, does it mean in the subdivision? What if he lived right outside the subdivision? Can he also complain, or is it just the people in the subdivision?
Well, that's where I think this is a little unclear. If I'm in a subdivision, but I'm next to a 100-acre family farm, and they're on their tractors or whatever they're doing, this reads that it doesn't apply to them.
Right.
And what, the mayor and I discussed it for a long time, and like I say, it's not a fit everything.
Yeah.
It would in a subdivision only. I worry about too is, are we discriminating against some people and not others? So,
It's complicated.
but this would solve this gentleman's problem with his neighbor.
What,
But
What about the man that working second shift and is pretty and he decides to ride his bike to work? He comes in at midnight and 1 o'clock. Now, that bike's gonna be making a lot of noise.
I think it's,
See, I can't
we're talking
go
about
this.
very a nuisance. Coming home from work is not a nuisance.
so my question would be, why do we have to have nuisance be applicable based on subdivision? Why can't it be applicable to any property? In other words, if, where anybody is creating a nuisance, whether it be the junk cars or loud noise, whether they're in the subdivision or by themselves, why can't I make it on that criteria where it's, a nuisance is a nuisance, whether it's in the subdivision or whatever. I'm just asking the question.
And that's a good point.
And the second point would be is, my concern is, two, how do you enforce it?
In there already, a noise ordinance.
Yes,
I mean, why would you need to pass another?
You gotta be able to measure the noise.
We talked about that, if we just can't measure.
And the third thing would be, that my question would be is, we're dealing with this issue where that seems to me, if it's a really, really nuisance, it seems to me that the fine you got in here is not enough. And if it's a real issue and they disregard, if people trying to enforce it, that doesn't seem like that's enough of a hindrance to somebody to abide by the ordinance. Does that make sense? What is it? $50? Whatever
We
it
don't
was.
have the thing in the ordinance. I see what you're saying.
Because I thought I read
We
here
would
that
include this in the general nuisance. Is that what you're saying?
well, no, this says after 5 days, the town may fine the owner up to $50, and then after that, they, whatever conditions with expenses of the action plus $500. To me, that's not much of a deterrent to somebody that's creating a nuisance. Seems to me that it's been more of a deterrent.
Like human being.
That can't.
Didn't work.
That's true.
But actually, other than $50, I'd say
There is,
$500.
there is some limit legally
Okay.
as to what I can charge.
Okay.
Now, your point is, why don't we just leave it as that's a nuisance, period.
Period.
But I have the same problem enforcing that as I do any nuisance. Now, I can write the problem letter and hope my letter will encourage him to be considerate of his neighbor.
Correct.
And that's what I do on most of them.
But you see, the tying it into a subdivision creates a problem, more of a problem for you. Is questions come out like you were saying, it ought to be just whatever the property is. If it's a nuisance, it's a nuisance.
That's a good one.
But the problem we've got right now is in the subdivision, right?
It is.
How many complaints have we had like that? Just this one?
Really a formal one, yes.
Okay, and,
Right on.
yeah, so, but I can't, I think I think we're stepping on toes too hard if we try to do that and try to enforce that. No, I ain't gonna enforce it.
Really, I don't have any legal way to enforce it except call Joe and say, Joe, let's go to court. And we can do that after we go through all the other, the fines and the notifications. Yes, I can do that. But then you try not to take people to court. We found out that is a very contentious problem. It just causes more problems. But here again, if you could talk to your neighbor and say, hey, this is bothering me, I've got a little baby. And he would help you, that's fine. That's great, that's the way a neighbor should be, but they're not all like that. And these are teenagers. So, we still in the public hearing?
It seems to me it's issues with major subdivisions. My only concern is, you already brought up an example a while ago where he was given his son an acre of his property. That's when we were talking about acre sizes and making like 2 acres, 1 acre. He was like, well, I want to give an acre to my son unless I get a divorce, right? The wife gets the house in divorce, she sells the house to whoever. So now you've got a stranger living in technically your property on an acre of your property. That's technically a subdivision. Now you've got a random person living next to you who only has an acre, you've got however many, and you decide you're gonna go shoot, you're gonna be on your four-wheeler, your dirt bike, whatever. That's a nuisance to them for whatever reason. That just makes it seem like setting the subdivision limits that low creates an issue when it's really a subdivision issue of people who are living on acres next to each other where it's, 20, 30 homes. You've got people doing this outside of, I guess, acceptable riding hours, which to some people is never.
Any other public comments? Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the council to discuss or ask questions.
I do think we got to get a little clearer on what we're actually trying to accomplish here. The subdivision piece does bother me a little bit, and that it could be just 2 houses side by side and one neighbor gets mad at the other neighbor, and we've got a whole issue that we're trying to deal with. I also have a concern that how does it work with, and this would apply even a major subdivision, the guy on the outside of that subdivision, if that has 100 acres by themselves, it doesn't apply to them. Or it wouldn't at this point in time because it's only within the subdivision. I mean, this is not an easy thing to write.
Now, you could still have, there's still a nuisance, like Gary said, a nuisance is a nuisance regardless of where it is. But you gotta be able to justify it.
But we don't have anything, so if that's the case, is there anything in our ordinance that say if it's a nuisance and it's determined to be a nuisance, then we could call, write, whatever?
That's what we have now, I think.
If that's the case, then why wouldn't the town just go ahead and write this guy a letter and say, look, we're having complaints, here's what's going on.
This particular guy asked me that he said, he didn't see, it was noise to him. So he knew it couldn't be a noise type deal. Because by the time I got out there with a meter, if we had such a thing, then it would be gone.
But I'm not talking about noise, I'm talking about nuisance. Is there anything in there that would apply to this as far as just a nuisance?
In the nuisance ordinance.
In the nuisance ordinance.
I don't see it.
I've looked through it, I don't see anything.
Just values of property, how it may affect the value of property or disturbance. I can't quote it exactly, but I consider anything I think there's a coming in of a quality of life that you would feed on my quality of living on my lot.
Noxious, detrimental to the rights of others to the full use of their own property and their own comfort, happiness, and emotional stability because of decreased property values and the unattractiveness and livability of neighborhoods.
And that
I
was
mean,
the definition.
in my opinion, I would prefer to try to get this thing settled like that and writing an ordinance to deal with each situation that pops up doesn't make sense to me.
I agree.
So I would start with that and then just see where this thing goes. That would be my opinion.
Okay,
I feel like what we're dealing with right here, we might be just opening a can of worms.
Okay, well, I guess my suggestion would be is to make a motion that we table this until we get further information on the definition of a nuisance and the ordinance involved.
okay. We have a motion to table.
So that's
For a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries. Okay, item number 2, review the update on the budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
All right, turn to page 36 in your book. We had a couple changes since last time we met. One, we increased the insurance expense by $600, and the other, we got some additional grass cutting at the park. That increased park maintenance by $576. So those are the only two changes we had since the last meeting, still at a 2-cent tax rate.
I'd like to make a suggestion. You know, the fire department has worked real hard to get the town grade lowered from a 5 to a 4. I'd like to do a little something for the fire department. I'm not talking about a lot. You know, we bought them a fire truck. There's a fire tax in effect. Calvin, I'm thinking maybe $2,000. And Gary had an idea about that. If you want to talk about that, Gary.
Yeah, Phil and I talked to him briefly, just in passing earlier today about it, and I thought we over here that it's nice to honor somebody, and it's nice, you know, passing money means one thing, but you have something to show for what you're honoring with. That I constantly in the park, I'm hearing comments all the time about how pretty the sunset is here at our park. Is we would, with the concurrence of the committee, is rather than give them money, that we allocate the money to put in a bench on the other side of the flags, for example, so people can sit there on the bench to see the sunset and then have a nice plaque honoring the fire department for what they do for us as a town. That was just a thought. And Jerry may know what that cost. I know one time it was $1,000 just for the bench, so $2,000 would cover the bench and installation.
Depends on the size bench you get. You're looking anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. I was looking at some today, up to $1,500, $1,600. You know, depending on the length of it.
Yeah, but have a nice plaque honoring them, and have a little ceremony in the process when you do it. It's dedicated to the fire.
Yeah, last year when the bandstand stayed set up there about all summer, people would go up there and sit on it and watch the sunset. You'd see 6 or 8 people up there, you know. Some families told me they just came, that's the only reason they came up there, just that day.
Watch the
just to watch the sunset. Because the way the clouds was, they wanted to see it from the park.
Yeah. I think it's important for the town to show good faith with the fire department. Many of you are going to see reduced insurance rates because of their hard work. I like Gary's idea of taking that money, a little bit of money, and doing something like that to honor the fire department and give the people a place to where they can watch the sunset. Because we're going to be neighbors. I mean, we're still trying to buy this property. They're going to be our next door neighbors when we buy this building and they put their new fire department next door. But that's just my thoughts. I'd like to know what y'all think about that.
I'm following. I think it's a good idea. I mean, they are volunteers and do a good job for our community, so.
Well, right now, we have $2,000 in grant. You want to increase that?
Yeah, I would say, just have a separate caption, fire department grant, 2,000, and hopefully be able to use that for a bench.
Do you get a motion?
No, because we won't adopt the budget until next month after the public hearing. Any other comments on the budget? Okay, thank you, Darryl. Appreciate what you do on that. We're to item number 3, the 601 and Brief Road vote. You've heard Bjorn's presentation. You've heard the consulting engineer's presentation last month, 2-1 in favor of the roundabout. So I'll open the floor for any discussion on that before we have a vote.
Well, I was against the roundabout to start with, but I sat up there the other day and just watched traffic, and I've been noticing it more, when I go out that way, quite a bit. Well, here recently, a lot going to Concord. And the roundabout would help tremendously from the Brief Road side.
I agree.
Help you tremendously. Now from the 601 side, it might be an impediment, but from the Brief Road side, it would really help.
Okay, other comments?
I would agree. I'm on that road all the time since we live right there, and it is a dangerous intersection when you're coming off Brief. There's just no way around it. Too many blind sights as you're coming over that hill. So you've got to do something to slow it down. I think that's probably the best option to do it.
Okay, other comments?
Well, we have people fairly smarter than me that made the study and all that stuff, and we're not paying for it. Is that correct?
The roundabout?
Yeah.
We'll be asked to contribute at some point, I'm sure, but hopefully we can get grant money to cover it.
No, I think so. If they think that's the way to go, apparently that's the way to go.
I'm in favor of the roundabout because of the safety concerns.
Okay. Any other comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
So and we go by the recommendations of the DOT to put a roundabout at the intersection of Brief Road and 601.
Okay,
I'll second.
any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Bjorn, do you need anything in writing?
No, this will be fine, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, Union County Community Development Block Grant. I got an email Friday from the county inviting us to participate in the Community Development Block Grant Program. We all heard Patrick Nyland talk about that a couple of months ago at a council meeting. Right now, there's only Monroe, Marshall, Stallings, Waxhaw, Weddington, and Wingate who are participating in that with the county. I know that I saw one negative comment on social media a couple of months ago after our meeting that the town should apply on their own. So I called Central Line of Council on Government, talked with someone there who's coordinating that program. And I just asked, what are our chances of getting this grant if we apply on our own? Basically slim and none. The county is going to get money. It's for low to middle income, low to moderate income. One of the things that I heard from the Council on Government was that one area that they're going to use this money for is on water well rehab. If you've got arsenic in your water and you're low to moderate income, you can apply and get some of that money. I was also told that every municipality that was involved in the past that applied for this money got the money. So to me, it doesn't make any sense to try to do this on our own when we can partner with the county and pretty well be assured of getting some grant money from the county. So also included can be park and playground enhancements, accessibility for people who are physically challenged. They can rehab homes. But I think the main thing that some of our residents would be interested in would be the having their wells rehab, try to get rid of the arsenic. So my recommendation is that we've got to let them know by June 4th whether we want to be involved with this or not. But my recommendation is that we partner with the county on the Union County Community Block Grant. I'll open the floor for any discussion.
So if we're not part of that, that would restrict any Fairview residents from having access to any of those funds.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's my understanding.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I guess my question would be is I don't understand, how do you rehab a well that has arsenic in it?
Filters.
Okay, so maybe a whole house filter or something for
Yeah.
people, okay.
It's a very, it's very expensive. It's a reverse osmosis system, which is very pricey.
But this money is there in a grant, a HUD grant, and it's going to be used for something if we apply for it. So,
We manage, would the town be involved in the picking of who gets the money if we're into it? They'll make the decision based on our recommendation, or how does that work?
they'll have to make an application, and the details of exactly how that works, I'm not sure. But I just know that I was told that everybody that had, they didn't spend all the money in the last 3 years. Everybody that applied, or all the towns that applied, got something.
That sounds to me like that's the way we're gonna need to go if we expect to get anything out of it.
Yeah. Because if we tried to apply on our own, first of all, we'd either have to write the grant ourselves or pay somebody to write the grant. And with the pickings being very slim, the possibility of getting a grant by applying on our own, I just think it makes a whole lot more sense to partner with the county. Let them do the paperwork, and we can then be looking for opportunities to try to get in on some of that money. Okay, I'll open the floor for a motion.
I make a motion, we join with the county on the block grant.
Okay, a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, and I'll write the letter to the county, letting them know that we're going to partner with them then. Okay, we'll move to council comments now. Jerry? Jerry, do you have anything?
Yeah, we had a cleanup day at the park. And I hope everybody's been up there in the last 2 weeks and saw this. Everything is looking good. Got a couple of problems I'm trying to take care of. And one is we got a commode stopped up in the ladies' bathroom. Hopefully the plumber will be in there tomorrow. And the cover on the junction box next to the shelter is missing. And I've got to find a cover to fit over that. Right now, I got a half bushel bucket laid over a rock on top of it just to make sure nobody, steps into it or some kid reaches down there and grabs some wires. The wires are wrapped, but still don't need to be sticking their hands in there. I think this exposed wires they was talking about was just, they're out of the loom, where they were tied together. But that, and I've tried to get somebody give me a price on putting a drive going up to the new wooded area. We need it. One thing, people could pull up there and there's plenty of parking. It wouldn't be taking up space in a paved area and wouldn't have to carry lunch or whatever once we get it finished up there. They could pull up there and park up there. But the main reason we need it is for our events, mainly Christmas. John, tell you that can get hairy. That hillside we used last year, got a lot of cars parked up in it. Wasn't even no tracks left on top of that hill. But getting to that hill is another story. And getting back out of it. So finally talked to Dan Brooks, Stan's boy. And Dan said he would put it in and put a tiling in so we could, filter the water through it and rock it for $2,500. I talked to 4 different people. Oh, I'm gonna get up there, I'm gonna get you a price. Eford that's done some work for us. Yeah, I get you a price. Hadn't heard nothing out of them yet. And 2 or 3 other landscapers and construction guys that's been in at work. Yeah, I'd love to get work. But they got so much to do. They're not gonna mess with a little small job like that. Not when they can go out and make thousands on a big job, So, but Dan has done some of this for parks before, and he's helped build some trails for parks. He's big into walking trails and stuff. His whole family takes trips, and that's what they do is they hike, go somewhere one day and just hike. So he's getting interested in the park and said he'd like to do something to help us out. And the big expense on this is the rock. Rock's gone up like everything else. And buying the tile to go in there. And he's figuring 3 loads of rock going up there, and I think we could probably get by with, cut out a load of rock, which would help us $400 or $500 on that.
Did his price include the rock?
Yeah. Okay. But that's beyond what I can approve, so I'd have to have the council's approval to let him do that. And according to Daryl, I think we got some money left that would cover that.
So,
Get it done. I'd like to get it done under this year's budget if possible.
Like to get it done before that next event.
Yeah.
What, June 4th?
Yeah.
13,000 left,
How much?
13,000 for park.
Of course, some of that'll come out for mowing.
Yeah, mowing
and
stuff,
stuff,
and stuff, but I think we're still in pretty good shape.
You want to get it done before the
I
June event?
would love to get it done before the June event if at all possible, and if the council would.
I'll make a motion to approve Jerry to do that.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay.
That way get it done.
All in favor? The motion carries. Thank you.
The next thing, our picnic table's supposed to be available May the 2nd. The ones I wanted to put up there. Now they're set back to July, and I've tried to get them through the manufacturer. I've tried to get them through Home Depot handles them, and some of these subsidiaries that handle them actually sell them cheaper than the manufacturer does to the public. And so they should, Mike having a meeting this week. I need to get with the facilities committee and talk to them and see what they would like to do, because we need tables up there as soon as possible. And, they may want to get together one Saturday and let's build some wooden tables or something to put up there and get them stained and shellacked and make them look real good, where you come up there and wipe the pollen off of them before you use them. But I'm having a problem with those tables that I really wanted. They were a W frame table, and they seat 900 pounds is what the seats are good would hold. So it handled, 300-pound people sitting on them without any problem. But I do want to commend Mike Medlin and Mr. Whitley. They did a tremendous job. We had that mulch brought out, and they went out that Saturday morning. They both got the front end loaders for a tractor. They dumped it where we wanted it. They came back out that week. Nobody showed up that morning for the work day because that was the day it rained. It started raining about 10 o'clock. But they the two of them raked every bit of that mulch. I had a load of shavings brought out for the playground area because it was getting to where it wouldn't pass inspection. They wheelbarred a dump truck load of shavings from the parking lot over and put into the playground area. The two of them did. They did all that in 1 week. They need to be commended for that.
And I have already thanked Mike. I have not thanked
Leon.
yet. And it really does look good if you haven't been over there.
And they did bush hog the area, the grassy area. I'm still working. I'm trying to find somebody. I finally, after a year trying to get a hold of, got up to the guy that was belling. And he didn't want to sow no grass seed. He didn't want to do nothing, just cut the weeds. He said his cows eat weeds. So I told him he wasn't going to work it no more. So Lane Griffins gave me a name of a fellow up. He lived, I can't think of his name right now. I want one real prepared this afternoon. Up here in Happy Clancy's house, Hayden Happy's house, Wright Clancy's old place. Lane said he lived up there, and he does some hay, so he suggested I get a hold of him. So I'm trying to contact him now. I talked to Logan Tucker and a couple others local, trying to, see if they'd be interested in it. Logan seemed to think they didn't need the extra hay, so they didn't bell it to sales. They just belled for what they were using, and that's the way about everybody else is right in this area.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Okay. John?
No, I won't comment. We were at the park yesterday doing some stuff up there, and it does look really good, especially that little area around those trees to the right when you go in, where you clean all that up. It really sets the park off. So thanks for all that work.
Well, several people from the band did come this past Saturday. And several of them, Mike took several of them up to the wooded area, the new area, and they, with these spring-like rakes, and we had a lot of water oak leaves down in that grass, and they raked that out, the whole area. And the rest of them just went around the woods and around the pond, picking up sticks. They were picking up sticks, that little bitty sticks, smaller than your finger, But they did a good job. The band did a good job with that.
Good. How many showed up from the band?
I didn't get
Mike said 10.
count. There were more than 10. There was several came after Mike went up to his area. He took the group up to that area and worked that area. And he probably had 6 up there. And they were a good 10 or 12. And there's some of the girls didn't want to pick up sticks, and then they were just going to weed or rock. So they got on their hands and knees and started pulling the weeds out of the rock. So.
Tricia?
I agree, the park looks great, and people are getting excited about the Catalina's.
Yes, they are. Mr. McCollum?
Everything.
Okay. I agree, the park really does look good. I went up there one day and couldn't find a parking place, so I just counted the vehicles. There were 33 vehicles up there one afternoon. The park was full of people. So it is getting used. It's a good thing that the town did. I've got a couple of things. Ed and I met today with Terry Fox, who's with the flood insurance program for the state. He came to do a community assistance visit. Basically, it's an audit of Ed and the flood ordinance and his permits and that kind of thing. But based on what I heard him say, I think the town came out very, very good on that audit. He'll send a report to Ed sometime in the next few weeks to outline his thoughts, but I thought it went very well. Social media committee, we've only had one application, so if anyone wants to serve on the social media committee, check the website, get an application from Teresa. Also, today I sat in on a Zoom meeting on the American Rescue Plan for the North Carolina League of Municipalities, how to get the federal money that the government's turning loose. It goes through the state and then it'll be funneled to the towns. So there'll be a pre-contracting checklist that Daryl and I will need to put our heads together on to fill out so that we can get some of that federal money. Don't know how much it'll be, but anyway, we'll have to jump through some hoops to get that federal money. And that's all I have. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session in accordance with General Statute 143-318.11.A3 to discuss legal matter with our attorney, Town of Fairview versus Davis. So we'll have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, at this time, we'll go into closed session.